Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Surviving Survival Mode. In this installment I'll be talking about how to manage your thirst. Out of all the new stat modifiers Survival Mode brings to the game, thirst is probably the most prevalent and the one you'll find yourself managing most often. But I guess it's like that in real life too, isn't it? Thirst modifies the intelligence, perception, and luck stats, and can also reduce your hit points. You'll get thirsty approximately every 4 in-game hours, depending on your activity level. If you're just sitting around or walking slowly while looting a building, you won't get as thirsty as you would when in combat or sprinting. Also, if you use chems, you will get thirsty considerably more often. Stim packs and most other chems make you thirsty, so it's a good idea to go easy on stims if your water supplies are low. I'll talk more about this in my episode about managing your health and fitness. There are 5 levels of thirst, each with their own modifiers. The first one is Parched. This gives you a debuff of -1 intelligence, and usually drinking 1 purified water or 2 dirty waters will be enough to quench it. If not quenched, your thirst will increase after another few in-game hours, and you will be thirsty, which will give you -2 intelligence and -1 perception. Following that, you will become mildly dehydrated, which causes -4 intelligence, -3 perception, and -1 luck. After about 30 in-game hours, you will become dehydrated, which severely hits your intelligence, giving you -8. Also, -5 perception and -2 luck. The last stage of thirst is severely dehydrated, which will rob you of your last bit of intelligence at -10, as well as -7 perception and -3 luck. In this stage, you will also experience periodic damage, and if you do nothing to counter either of these effects, you eventually start becoming fatigued. In the most extreme cases, you will become debilitated and will no longer be able to run. You will continue to lose health until you eventually die. And it goes without saying that the thirstier you are, the more water it will take to quench your thirst. It took 8 purified waters to quench my thirst after being severely dehydrated, but only 1 when parched, and twice as many dirty waters. So, drinking small sips more often is definitely more beneficial and more economical. Because thirst takes such a huge toll on your intelligence, it's a good idea to remember to quench your thirst before turning in any quests, so you can be sure to get the maximum experience points. Taking the Idiot Savant perk may be beneficial in a survival playthrough, since it may counter the intelligence debuffs of thirst. However, I have not tested this, so I'm not positive this is true. If you guys know anything about it, please leave a comment down below. Alright, now that we've talked about all the horrible things thirst can do to you, let's talk about how to prevent all that from happening. Obviously, you need to drink, and often, but are all drinks created equal? Well, no. Purified water is obviously the most beneficial drink out there, and it will quench your thirst more completely than any other. If you don't have any purified water on hand, other forms of liquid will work, just not as well. And most others will also give you a small amount of radiation damage. But I think the trade-off is worth it. Thirst does far worse things to you than the tiny bit of radiation you'll get from drinking a Nuka-Cola. All types of Nuka-Cola will quench your thirst, though I found that it usually takes 2 Nuka-Colas to quench the same amount of thirst as 1 purified water. Alcohol will not quench your thirst, and in fact it actually makes you thirstier, so think twice before you gulp down that ice-cold Gwyneth pail. Other than purified water, dirty water will be the most readily available, since you can drink from any standing water source, from a tiny puddle all the way up to the ocean itself. Drinking dirty water will obviously give you a small amount of radiation damage, but again, it's such a small amount you may not even notice it unless you drink several dirty waters at once. The biggest risk in drinking dirty water is the small chance of contracting an illness from it. Now, I'm not sure what your chances of getting sick are, but it is fairly unpredictable. Sometimes I've gotten an illness after my first sip, and sometimes I never got one even after a dozen sips. Sometimes I got one, but it didn't show up right away. So the risk is there. but it may be worth it if you've gone more than 8 hours without water. I'll talk more about illness in my episode on managing your health and fitness. Now, where to find all that precious water you're going to constantly need? I suggest starting off on the right foot in the very beginning by collecting every empty bottle you can find inside Vault 111, and before you leave, fill them up at the sink in the kitchen there. This will replace each empty bottle with one purified water, and you can find around 9 or 10 empty bottles in the vault. Once at Sanctuary, scour the place for all empty bottles you can find. All kinds of empty bottles work: beer bottles, Nuka-Cola bottles, milk bottles, and generic empty bottles. Don't forget to check the secret root cellar behind one of the houses, as there are a few bottles in there, as well as 2 cans of purified water and a bunch of food. Once you've done that, you can build a water pump and use it to fill your bottles. You can also build a water purifier, which will deposit a certain amount of purified water into your settlement workbench each day. For settlements that don't have open water sources, you can build the alternative water purifier added by the Wasteland Workshop DLC, which can be placed in dirt. If you're fresh out of bottles, you can also drink directly from water pumps and working sinks. The sinks in Vault 81, however, cannot be activated for some reason, but there is a working drinking fountain in the residential area. If you're far from any settlement and have no access to purified water, always be collecting empty bottles as you go, and fill them with dirty water the very first chance you get. You can get water from even the tiniest of puddles. Whenever you come across a cooking station in your travels, take a moment to purify any dirty water you have on hand so you're always replenishing your stock. You can kill 2 birds with 1 stone by eating melons, soups, and noodle cups, as these will both satisfy your hunger and quench your thirst. However, melons and soups are not as efficient in the thirst department, since they both weigh twice as much as purified water, and you have to consume twice as many to quench your thirst. Not to mention they're considerably harder to find or make, since you need several ingredients for each one. In the next episode, which will be about managing your hunger, I will talk about the most efficient foods to carry with you. With the decreased carrying capacity in survival mode, you will find that carrying 50 purified waters isn't always something you can manage, especially if you're scrounging for scrap to build settlements. Planning your trips and taking only what you need quickly becomes a must, especially in the early game before you've had a chance to increase your carrying capacity with perks and pockets. Just remember, it takes 3 dirty waters to make 1 purified water, and once you use a bottle, it's gone for good and you have to find new ones. I will talk more about this in the episode about managing your carry weight. When planning your trips, take into account any large dungeons you might go into, such as the Rust Devil's Hideout or the Mechanist's Lair in the Automatron DLC. These places can take up to 2 in-game days to clear if you spend a lot of time exploring every nook and cranny, especially if you're a sneak-based character. So you may need to take more water with you than normal. This may mean leaving behind a lot of loot in favor of carrying your water, but you can always go back and get it later. Something I like to do is bring a lot of water with me, and once I get inside the building, store most of it in a container, thus freeing up my inventory for loot. And if I get thirsty and run out of the 3 or 4 waters I'm carrying, I can go back to that container and get some more. And on the subject of planning your trips, it's a good idea to use settlement locations to set up simple way stations for yourself, where you keep just the basics: a cooking pot, a water pump, and a bed. The settlements that don't already have people living in them are the best for this purpose, especially if you're not planning on doing any settlement building, since then you don't have to worry about caring for anyone else's needs but your own. So that's all for this episode, everyone. Let me know how you liked it by giving this episode a thumbs up and leaving a comment down below. I love to hear how you all are surviving survival mode. Did I miss anything? Have any other tips that could help other players out? Please leave them down below too. Until the next episode, everyone, remember to play safe, play nice, and have fun. See ya.